my name is LaVita Tuff, and interestingly enough, I was born the daughter to a notorious DC drug dealer and a teenage mother. So I was never expected to change the world. I was never expected to add anything of value to it. I spent my formative years watching my parents master the art of survival in the hardcore streets of Southeast DC. I remember my mother, who barely had enough to call a high school education, constantly working odd jobs in and out to keep me and my brother from realizing the truth of our reality, that we were poor Black kids in the inner city. That experience, my life story, has made me a better policy analyst and a better advocate, because it's really easy to empathize with the people that you fight for. But it's another thing when you're a member of their family. You see, I also understand the value of investing in underserved communities because I am the beneficiary of that type of investment. The Atlanta Urban Debate League, that was led by Miss Melissa Wade, a woman who believed that Black kids had value and deserved to have a voice, saved my life. She gave me a voice. She inspired me. She made me believe that I was strong enough to change the world and that I could. With that inspiration and that commitment to my personal journey, I decided to take that inspiration and go to cities like New Orleans and Jackson and Baltimore because of one woman believing in me and my value and my voice. That journey led me to the University of New Orleans, where I decided I wanted to become an urban planner and learn about housing and economic development and community development. And while there, as a grad student, I had this bright idea to go teach in the Recovery School District. Probably not the best idea, but it was one of those ideas because I was desperate for money. When I signed up to teach, I didn't realize that I was signing up to be an advocate for educators and students alike. So I went from being this regular, rambunctious grad student who was trying to change the world and become an urban planner to a girl who was speaking at community meetings, trying to get people in government to hear what we had to say. And in a series of community meetings to protect community schools, I sat there and I realized something. They're not listening to us. They're not paying us any attention. So I remember in one meeting in particular at our school, I got really excited because they handed us note cards and they said, write down your question or your concern and a city official will address it. And so I was ecstatic, like, yes, here's our moment. Here's our chance to really get someone to hear our concerns and answer our questions. That didn't happen. We sat there for hours on end, and I think we all came to the realization that our voices had no value. We realized that we were stuck at something we call step 5 on a ladder of participation, placation. Social work author and scholar Sherry Arnstein created this ladder of participation that in essence teaches us how to engage with one another. So we don't want to be stuck at 5, placation, which in a very polite way is, I hear you enough to listen, but I don't hear you enough to care. And here we were in this community meeting, like all other community meetings, stuck at 5. They heard us enough to listen, but they didn't dare hear us enough to care. So now I was a little bit more than devastated. I was pissed off. I was like, something has to give. Do people see this? I can't believe this is happening. I felt like the Marshawn Lynch of politics, like they were literally there so they didn't get fined. So, a lack of accountability, a lack of transparency, these people, they just didn't care. And that ignited a fire in me and a passion, and I decided it is gonna be my life's mission to make government engage with its constituents. I'm gonna figure out a way to do that. And when I tell people this story, they're like, well, how did you get from engaging in communities to open data? And what in the world is open data, and why is it important? Why are you offering open data as a solution to problems with engagement along with other problems in city government? And to be honest, I ask myself that question every day, like how did I get here? How did I start playing with open data? Like many of you, I had no idea what it was. I thought it was a series of numbers on a sheet of paper, a series of numbers on a computer, a box full of all this information. And sometimes it is that, right? But sometimes you realize that open data is a series of numbers that tell a story. And there are several stories that I personally like. The first being the city of San Francisco. They took open data and created something called crime spotting. So now in the city of San Francisco, we know where crime is happening. We know where people have a tendency to hang out to do certain types of crime. It's like being able to catch the bad guy in 2015 so cops can really sit back and just eat donuts. It's like really, really cool. And it's amazing, and it's powered by something called open data, and it tells a story about San Francisco. Then there are cities like the city of Chicago who have second city zoning. As an urban planner who then decided to become a lawyer, why I don't know yet, I still don't understand zoning at times. It's very detailed and the code is intricate. It's really hard to grasp, but it's still important. So the city of Chicago used open data to teach its constituents what it meant in practice. Now we know what it means when we can't put a building in a residential area. We know what it means to see a code put into practice. And it's powerful. And it tells us the story about where opportunity exists in the city of Chicago. Then we all have to deal with our police department and our fire department. And it's amazing that the entire time I've been here in Jackson, I haven't heard a siren. I was talking to our communications director, like, it's really quiet in Jackson. I'm not used to this. But in cities like Los Angeles, it's not that quiet. And they decided that their fire department was gonna have an open data portal where they can determine where the response times were lagging. And in cities like Los Angeles and Baltimore and DC, this is really important because we wanna know, where are you guys not getting it right? Why are you not making it to these calls? And why does it take you an hour and a half to go and save a life? That's what open data does. It changes the way we utilize city services, right? Then there's one that I really like, and I wish we had it in New Orleans when I was advocating in our communities, and it's from South Bend, Indiana. And it allows its constituents to go in and provide feedback to its government officials. And what I like to say is, it's basically our new age way of saying, hey, I'm here, you have to listen to me, and you don't have a choice. Like, you can't shut me up. And I think it's a cool way to engage with government, and it's powered by open data. But I think that there's an example that we all can relate to because all of us eat food, and I've had lots of lovely food while I've been here in Jackson. I prefer that my food not crawl off of my plate. I prefer that my food be cooked fully. So in the city of Baltimore, with the help of City Councilman Brandon Scott, they created a food portal that talks about establishments that have faced closures because they didn't comply with the health code. I'm all for open data keeping me safe. I'm all for open data saving lives. I'm all for open data keeping things from crawling on my plate. And that's what it is, right? Open data is something that's not just a series of numbers. It's a series of city stories like the ones we've shared here. Open data is information. Open data is power. It's a resource. And open data is something that I want to bring to the city of Jackson. And luckily, I've had some help. Because Mayor Tony Yarber decided that he wanted to apply to be one of the first cities to participate in a program entitled What Works Cities. He was the first to apply, the first to be accepted, and to no surprise, the city of Jackson was also the first city to pass an open data executive order because he saw the importance of open data and he wanted to become a part of this growing trend of making government better, making it reliable, making it accountable. But with open data and the story that these cities have told, Jackson has its own story that it can tell. And that story is a story about being resilient. It's a story about lifting off from the status quo and making Jackson a better city for all who live within its city limits. And it can do that with open data, and it can also do that with the help of millennials. I heard you guys having a conversation about baby boomers and millennials. I'm not gonna share my age because I'm way too close to 30, but I'm a millennial. So I embrace that. And millennials, if you're looking to see what a millennial really looks like, you can look in the room right now and it's the person whose smartphone is attached to their hand. They're on the internet, they're on Instagram, they're on Facebook, they're on Vine, they're on Vimeo, they're on Twitter. They're on so many things, I'm too close to 30 to keep up. But that's what millennials are doing. And they're using this personal data, they're interacting with this data, they're playing with this data, they're manipulating the data, they're putting the data in context, it's just personal data. But millennials also love open data. So they use this open data to create tools that tell us where we can go and find our nearest voting precinct. They use these open data resources to tell us how we can pay our parking ticket online. Gone are the days where we have to go down to City Hall to pay a parking ticket. They use this open data to tell us about that pothole that you probably could have avoided last week if we had put open data in Jackson a little bit sooner. That's what millennials are doing with open data. But it's not just about creating apps. It's not just about creating tools. Open data is also about engagement. Because 71% of Black millennials believe that they can impact the world through political participation. They want to be engaged with. 61% of people go online looking for information about their government. 32% of people go online looking to interact with their local government. So people are looking for this information. They want to interact with this information. They want to play with open data. They want to utilize this resource. And when it isn't there, we can only tell half-truths about what's really going on in our cities. The good thing about Jackson is that you have a city filled with the millennials, filled with people who are willing to push Jackson to the next level, who are willing to lift off and take it beyond what any other city has done. And it's people like Mayor Tony Yarber, who decided, I really have to be the first city to get this done because I want to create a national standard for open data through What Works Cities. And he's doing that. But just like that, Jackson also has its own share of issues with open data. You see, if Jackson would utilize open data in a way that transforms the way we interact with the city, we see that Jackson could change the way the police department kind of works and the way they release data. Unfortunately, the way the police department releases data, just like this internal affairs, I call it a rap sheet, right? It doesn't really tell us any information. It just gives us a list of all the things that went wrong with no context. I can't download it. I can't play with it. I can't talk about continuous trends in the police department. I can't tell you who continuously has police incident-related issues. I can't tell you any of that information because I can't download it. It's not machine readable. It's not user-friendly. It's just a snapshot. But if this was open data, I could play with this. I could write a story about what Jackson's police department is actually doing that's great. And maybe it's something that the rest of the world needs to know. But without open data, Jackson can't do that. So I understand that so many people are always wondering, like, what is open data and how does it work? But as you can see, it's a myriad of things. But they all do the same thing. They all tell a story. They all show you that open data is power. It's a resource. It's a tool. It helps us to engage. It helps us to create new apps. It helps us to make our cities better. It transforms lives. I never thought when I was studying to be an urban planner or when I went to law school that I would be playing with numbers. After all, I have a degree in English, and I took one math class to get here. Never thought I would ever play with numbers. But I never thought that numbers would change my life either. Because you see, I was born the daughter of a notorious DC drug dealer. And I was never expected to change the world. I was never expected to go to Jackson State University's Southern Heritage Classic rival, go Tennessee State University. We've beat you guys like 3 years in a row. I was never expected to do that. I was never expected to transform cities through something as powerful as open data. And just like no one expected much of me, I think we can all agree that sometimes people don't expect that much from Jackson. And they're wrong, because Jackson has a lot to offer the world. And with open data, it can do that. It can transform the world. It can be that rocket fuel for ideas that are powering millennials to create civic technology tools to make Jackson a better place and a better city for you all and me, because after having the catfish at the Mayflower Cafe, I have to come back. So that's what open data is. It's a tool that can take Jackson from being just another mid-sized capital in the Deep South to the new, rapidly improving capital of the new Deep South. Thank you.